Fellas, welcome back to episode 11 of the MMA podcast. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to episode 10, UFC 322 last week. I hope you guys enjoyed it just as much as I did. It was really great to see Islam achieve that double champion status and keep adding to his go of a legacy. You know, it's always really cool to see those moments and live in those moments. And it was also super cool to see the UFC welterweight division really get juggled up after that night too. You know, Carlos Prates knocking out Leon Edwards, and you got Michael Morales knocking out Sean Brady as well. Those are two things that are just crazy for that division. Really good fighters that are about to start contending for the belt, and I just hope you guys enjoyed it just as much as I did. It was just amazing, you know. And yeah, you guys may wonder why Carter is not on this episode right now. Unfortunately, he decided to step away from the podcast and the platform as a whole. It just became too much for his workload, and doing this on top of our work schedules as well was just too much for him, and it's totally understandable. You know, you got to focus on work and your career, and the workload for this just became not a hobby to him anymore, and that's totally okay because, you know, if it just becomes too much, you don't want to stress yourself out, you know, so there's no bad blood there. Him and I are still great friends, so don't get that twisted, but yeah, we're not going to let that set us back. You know, you can't focus on the past, you can't dwell on it, you gotta focus on the future, and yeah, we're not going to have this be a setback for us, so I'm going to keep pushing out the same content for you guys. Let me know what you think of the new spot. It'll be pretty interesting. I'm going to try to have guests on here every week. Guests meaning like my friends, and have their takes and bring new opinions, new ideas from them, and hopefully you guys enjoy that. And I'll make sure to have that put together as well as possible for you guys. So I hope you enjoy it. And yeah, we're just going to jump right into it, all right? So I'm going to do the UFC record right now. I'm going to keep that going because I love that segment. Pop that up right here. I went perfect this weekend. Besides the Kopylov when me and Carter decided to throw that on there, so I guess not perfect, but on the main card, I went 5-0. You know, it was just I wasn't expecting that, honestly, but I was really confident with my picks, and, you know, it just went my way, and I was really happy about that, obviously. You know, I guessed BSD, Carlos Prates, Michael Morales, Shevchenko, and Islam. You know, I was really confident with those picks, and it just went my way. I was not expecting Michael Morales to knock out Sean Brady, though. That was absolutely nuts. I knew that Leon was just going to play into Carlos Prates' game, but Carlos also really, really defended his takedowns well, even though he didn't shoot that many times, you know. So that was absolutely awesome to see, and it was just great to see, and I was really excited about it. The things that really got me upset, though, was the Malcolm Wellmaker fight. You know, he also had to fight a guy on a 2 hours notice, but the guy that accepted on 2 hours notice also was just a better fighter, more complete, and just pretty much just outfought Wellmaker that whole time. So that was just nuts, and it sucked to see him lose, you know. But yeah, put me at what? Am I 15-6 now? I was 10-5. Now I'm 15-6. So I'm gonna keep that going. Keep writing my picks if you guys do. I made like $200 this week, and it was so awesome. So we're gonna keep that trend going into the UFC fight night this weekend with Belal and Ian Garry, and then I mean, just another banger of a main event, you know, with Arman and Dan Hooker. It's just going to be nuts. So, yeah, I'll jump into a little recap of the UFC 322 card. What do I got to say? Yeah, Malcolm Wellmaker, it was upsetting, you know, because he had those two insane first-round knockouts, his first two fights in the UFC, and, you know, now he's on a little setback. But, you know, you learn and you keep going from that, and I think he had a lot to learn from that fight. And so there's always good things to look at losses, you know, or just minor setbacks. There's always good things to look at it because you learn from them, you know, so that's the whole point of them. What else? Yeah, Kopylov, you know, that fight got switched for him to fight Rodriguez because Gregory Rodriguez missed weight, and so he had to fight Kopylov, and then Bo Nickel had to fight Vereda or whatever, however you pronounce his name. So, you know, it was it sucked to see that Kopylov's got switched, and then that hurt my record. But, like, all good there. Bo Nickel, a crazy leg kick knockout in the third round. That was just absolutely crazy. And I loved his reaction too after that. And I've always been a fan of Bo Nickel. I know people had, like, not their doubts about him, but, just he started getting on some people's bad side, so it was great to see him come out on top after a loss, an embarrassing loss he had. So I'm happy to see him in the W column, and yeah, that's that. So yeah, that's it for the prelims I'll talk about. But sorry if this will be a little quicker episode. There's just not a lot. Just not having Carter here is just gonna kind of make this flow by, and it's just gonna be me spewing. So I hope you guys bear with me on that. I'll have it figured out next week. But what else? I mean, BSD versus Benil Dariush. That was a great fight. BSD did his thing. Benil was trying to shoot his takedowns on him, and it wasn't working. He didn't really shoot a takedown. He was getting him in the clinch and trying to, like, mix it up throughout the fight. But BSD really held his ground. His hands looked great. And then right when they were in the clinch, BSD just threw that left hook that clipped him right on the temple and just knocked him down. It was a pretty quick one-round fight with 16 seconds, left on the clock. And so, yeah, I mean, BSD, he's about to shoot up in the rankings, and it's just going to be absolutely nuts. And we'll just have to go from there, because I think BSD deserves a top 5 fight, in my opinion. He looks great. He's on a great win streak right now. He's now 4-2 in his last 6 fights. It's going to be a lot of uprise for BSD. Benil, it just sucks. He keeps having to go back to the drawing board, and it just sucks when you're kind of just in that cycle, especially at the end of your career, so that's just unfortunate, but it's just how the game works, and you just gotta stick with it. But yeah, shout out BSD, man. You're an absolute beast. Your fight game is just, and on your feet, you're just a complete badass, and I totally respect him. I'm really, really excited to see what he has for his next fight, or who he has, so that would be awesome. And then this was one of my favorite fights of the night, was Leon Edwards versus Carlos Prates. It was just great. The first round was good. It was a little slow, but not. I guess it was just kind of average for a first round, Leon took the first round, which was nuts. He looked great in the first round. Yeah, he got him on like two of his 3 takedown attempts. He outstruck Carlos by 8. And then you kind of just saw Leon just look a little sluggish again in the second round. He just as the fight went on, just looked a little sluggish again. And I don't know why, or he got gassed out. I don't think he got gassed out, but, he didn't shoot any takedowns in the second round. And kind of, I think, might have gotten away from his game plan. And then Carlos Prates just got on top of that. He was on his feet and just outstruck him. And Leon played into his game like I predicted. He just played right into his game. And you got to take advantage of that when someone comes and plays into your game, and that's exactly what Prates did. And so I feel really bad for Leon, because he was a great champion, beating Oezdemir twice, and he is on a 3-fight losing streak now, and now it's Prates' turn to make that title run and hopefully make it to the top. It's just, there's a bunch of things going on in that welterweight division now, especially with Belal and Ian Garry fighting this weekend as well, which we will jump into. But yeah, sorry, Leon. You had I thought your game plan was great in the first round, and then you kind of just got away from that in the second round. And like I keep saying and repeating myself, Carlos just took advantage of that and hit him with that straight punch right to the jaw, just square on the jaw. And it was a beautiful strike, and just hit his lights out, send him to another dimension like people have been saying. So, yeah, back to the drawing board. I think Leon versus Buckley will be a great fight, because they're both coming off losses, and I think those two versus each other could give them both a chance to show if they still have it, if they can still make a run and be competitive in this division. And yeah, I think Prates, and I'll transition into this next fight, should fight Michael Morales, for a little number 1 contender, in my opinion. Who knows? That could be a great little fight going on to see who should fight next for the welterweight. title, because JDM probably won't fight because he lost that fight. And, Belal, if he beats Ian Garry, that can be another question to add. But, Michael Morales just beat the number 2 ranked welterweight Sean Brady in round 1 and just looked great that whole fight. Just looked great the whole time. And, Sean Brady didn't even get a takedown on him, and then he outstruck him by 16 strikes and obviously knocked him down and finished him. It was just Michael Morales looked on a different level, man, and I did not think he would be that dominant in that fight against such a well-respected fighter. So it will be really interesting to see how that all pans out. I think you should give Michael Morales versus Carlos Prates a number 1 contender fight, to fight Islam, or if you do something, if Belal beats Ian Garry, maybe, but we'll see. It's just going to be really, really interesting to see how this all pans out. Sean Brady, he's right there. It sucks. He's probably going to have to fight 2 more times and win those 2 to fight for the belt, and he was right there. I respect him taking the fight with Michael Morales when he did beat Leon, submitted him, and he became the number 2 ranked fighter. He probably should have fought for the belt next. But, he's a warrior, and I respect him for taking that fight against Michael Morales. And, it'll just be interesting to see how it pans out. I'm really excited for this welterweight division. If it was not on pause, it's just the guys all decided to have their fights happen in like 2 weeks within each other, So that'll be super, super interesting. And I'm just really excited for the welterweight division as a whole going forward. It's just gonna be badass, to say the least. What else we got? Not what else. We got Valentina Shevchenko versus Zhang. I predicted this last week on the episode for the UFC 322. I just knew or had a feeling that Shevchenko would just be too big for Zhang. Going up a weight class for 15 pounds is just a big difference. We said that Zhang and Shevchenko will weigh much differently after weigh-ins because Shevchenko, that's not her actual weight, and Zhang has to go up 15 pounds. So she's probably just cutting less. And, Shevchenko probably weighed so much more than her on fight day, obviously, and I just knew her grappling game was just much better than Zhang's, and Shevchenko would probably she just knew what she had to do to take that win, and that was just getting her to the ground, keeping her there, focus on the control, and just get the ground strikes there as well. She got 137 strikes on her in that fight. Outstruck her by almost 60 strikes. It was crazy. And, she had 5 takedowns of her 8. That's a great takedown percentage. And it was just a really good dominant win by Shevchenko, which is just super great to see. Have a great title defense yet again, and she just cemented her legacy even more of why she's one of the best woman fighters of all time. She's running that pound for pound. I think that was a great super fight. People were saying Kyla Harrison versus Shevchenko next. That's a big possibility, and I'm a big fan of Kyla Harrison. Her story's awesome. Just became champ. Shevchenko for her in a super fight. That's just to a T. That's just the best thing that they could possibly do, in my opinion. But who knows? Give her another person that they think deserves a shot in her division. But I would love to see Kyla Harrison versus Shevchenko. It will be super great of a fight. I think it would draw a lot of numbers and get people excited just like they were for this super fight right here. So I think the women's division has so much upside and so many great things and fights to look forward to in the future. So keep in tune with that. It's gonna be great to pay attention to. All right, now we got JDM versus Islam. And I could say the same thing that I said for the Shevchenko fight. Islam just dominated. JDM, he didn't even throw a punch in the first 10 minutes of the fight. It was ridiculous, and it looked like he just threw him off his game. Islam was just dominating, and Islam took him down pretty immediately in the first 2 rounds, or in the first 3 minutes of the 2 rounds. And he would get back on the feet and then strike with him for a little bit and low-key outstrike him, and then would just take him down immediately again. I think Islam's game plan was just perfect. He would take him down early and then keep him down there if he can, but then if they got back up, he would throw little strikes and get him moving, get him thinking, put him off his game and not be prepared for him to shoot for a double leg or a single leg. And then Islam just would strike for a couple seconds, for like 30 seconds or so, and then just take him down and throw him off his game. He made him feel like very unprepared or not being able to predict when he was shooting those takedowns in the middle of the round. So I thought that was just a great game plan from Islam. For the MKMA pound-for-pound rankings, he is going to be at number 1. We'll get into that at the end of this episode. But I think Islam has cemented his legacy at the next level. I think he's got to be a top 10 fighter of all time now in my books, and he's just gonna keep fighting too. When you see guys go for double champs, they kind of lose one of those belts. I mean, I guess he's not like the lightweight champion right now, but I would love to see him go down and fight Ilya. I think he can win that fight too. I think Ilya is like the only guy that can stop him really, because Ilya is like, he has a jiu-jitsu background. That's what he's known for, but his boxing is insane too. It's almost better than his jiu-jitsu now because you haven't seen him use his jiu-jitsu in a long time because he's just flat out knocking people out. So I think that's the fight next. I think Islam should fight him, and then maybe if he wins that fight, Oezdemir in the future, or who knows? I don't like. It's pretty cool to see like an active double champ in that fights as often as he does. So it's gonna be super fun to see how he does in the welterweight division, and hopefully when he goes back down to the lightweight division and fight for that belt again. So I think it's just gonna be absolutely awesome to see where this goes in the future. The 2026 Paramount deal with UFC has so many great UFC champions going into that 2026 year, and I think it's just going to be amazing to see for their first year how it plays out with that new deal, the new cards, and just these new champions going into the year. I think it's just going to be awesome. The UFC really capped it off on a great year, and we still have UFC 323 left, and we got obviously this fight night that we're going to talk about, and I love that UFC 322 card, probably one of my favorite cards of the year if I had to be honest, and I just couldn't be more happy about it. Like, I was on top of the world Saturday night, not just because I won a lot of money or went perfect on the main card, come on now, but it was really great to see. I thought the two championship fights, like the co-main and the main event, could have been a little better, but I think those two champions just knew what they had to do to win their belts, So you got to respect the game, and you got to respect the wrestling part of it too, because it's an MMA sport. You got to be well-rounded at everything to be able to become a champion, and that's what Islam and Shevchenko are. They're the most well-rounded fighters in their divisions, in the men's league division, and in the women's league division. You know what I mean? So I think that was flat out just dominant performance. Their legacies are just like soaring in my books, and there's just so many great things to look forward to. So good job, Islam. JDM, you're still there. Maybe if Belal beats Ian Garry, then we could do JDM versus Belal number 2, and then have like Michael Morales and Carlos Prates fight. I think those two make a lot of sense to me, but we'll see how it goes. So a lot of things to look forward to. But all right, and then now we got the UFC Fight Night this weekend. It's just going to be a great card. It's in Qatar, and that's what I love about it, because it's at 1 p.m. So I get to watch and drink to UFC at 1 p.m. on a Saturday, which is like the best thing in the world, because when fights happen like on regular time, and I'm on Eastern time as well because I live in Indiana. Like the main events come on at 12:30, and I don't get mad about that because I love the sport so much. I'm gonna watch it whenever. But when it comes on at 1 o'clock and I be able to tune that in and college football at the same time, like that's just like the cherry on top. It's just so great. But yeah, I'm only gonna talk about 3 of the fights here. Volkan versus Alonzo Menifield. Here's the thing. I don't know that much about them too much. I know Volkan's coming off a loss and Alonzo's coming off a win on a 2-fight win streak actually. But both of these guys lost to Carlos Ulberg, and we know Ulberg is probably next up for the light heavyweight championship against Pereira next. But who knows? Like, everyone's talking about that Pereira might fight John Jones at the White House, and so I really think that Carlos Ulberg should fight for the belt next, but that's another story. But both of these guys, they big heavy throwers, and I think that it's not going to go to the ground at all because they only have a couple wins by submission. But it's I think this is going to be a very big stand and bang fight, and I don't think this is also Alonzo's biggest test yet because he hasn't really fought anyone besides Ulberg, and that was a couple years ago. And he just cracked into the top 15. Volkan's been around for a while, and I just think that Volkan will be too much for Alonzo to handle, and I just think that Volkan will come out with a win. I don't know if that will be by decision or knockout, but I'm just gonna take the money line here and just keep it simple because that's where I think that's where my head's at. And, I wish I knew a little bit more about these fighters, just a little new to me because I haven't seen their names on or focused on them on the past cards. But I think it'll be a great fight. I think it's one of the most underrated fights of the night, too, because, it's a top 15 ranked fight, so I guess not that underrated, but they're big, stand and bang heavy throwers, and I think that's where it's going to be at, and I think it's just going to be a great fight, and maybe we might get a performance of the night. Who knows? But yeah, so give me Volkan, and we'll keep it that simple, so can't complain there. And now we got Belal Muhammad versus Ian Garry. I think this is a great matchup. I think it's so awesome. I don't know how much these two dislike each other or not, but I think these both are very well trained guys in the wrestling game, and also Belal showed that he can throw on the feet when he fought JDM in that title fight. I got a whole new respect for Belal, and I know he was talking about to MMA Junkie in the little interview I saw with him earlier today that he was saying that he thinks he is going to take Ian Garry down, let him up to let him know that he can take him down, and then knock Ian Garry out on the feet. He said he's going to try to outbox. He wants to outbox him. He thinks he's going to. And I don't know if Belal does that, he got outboxed by JDM, and I mean that's one of the most respected guys to lose on the feet. And that was an absolute war by Belal versus JDM. And I think if it stays on the feet, Ian Garry has everything in the tool bag. He showed when he fought MVP that he can just wrestle. And MVP's not the biggest grappler, obviously. He's not at all. But MVP got outclassed and wrestled by Ian Garry there. And also Ian Garry just beat Carlos Pradas in his last fight, which was absolutely nuts. It's I think that's Carlos Pradas' only loss or his second loss ever. And so, I mean, you got to respect that. If Carlos couldn't knock out Ian Garry when Carlos Pradas has been knocking out everyone in the UFC since he's been here, I mean, you got to respect that too. So it's just, and also when Ian Garry fought Shavkat before that, I know he lost, but he really handed it to Shavkat. It was a really even fight, but obviously you score by rounds, and Shavkat won in those three rounds instead of Ian Garry. And it was just, and Ian Garry earned a lot of my respect there too. So, we're just gonna see how that fight plays out. But I'm gonna take Ian Garry here, honestly. I think that Belal's wrestling is good. I don't think it's amazing though, and I think Ian Garry will be able to handle definitely his takedowns, and I think he'll outclass him on the feet. Ian Garry's very good at leg kicks, and I don't think Belal's really handled a lot of that in his past, so I think Ian Garry's just going to be able to do his thing and get the job done. I think his takedowns will be well. I think Belal will get some takedowns on him, obviously, because it's Belal. He's one of the best wrestlers in the welterweight division. But I think that's why I don't think his wrestling is great, is because he couldn't keep JDM down, and JDM, when the fight got back to the feet, just beat Belal in that in that part of the game. So that's why I'm taking Ian Garry as well. It's just going to be super interesting, and I think it's a very, very great fight. I think it's a very unique fight too, putting together two guys with totally different fight styles. And I know that happens a lot in the UFC, but, just seeing Belal versus Ian Garry really gets me excited, really gets me going. It'll be cool to see how Belal comes back after his previous loss, and I think this is obviously a really big fight for these two futures. This could potentially be a number one contender fight, because if Ian Garry wins, he's the number one ranked welterweight fighter in that division now. So we'll see. It's just and then also Sean Brady lost, and he was the number 2, and Michael Morales is number 2 now. It's gonna be nuts. There's so much going on in the welterweight division. But yeah, give me Ian Garry, and I guarantee if he wins, he might fight for the belt next. Who knows? Sorry, I should not say guaranteed, but who knows, man. Or you could do Ian Garry versus Kamaru Usman if Ian Garry wins this fight, because everyone thinks that Usman should be fighting one more fight before he fights Islam. So, and also Usman has fought since the summer, so it would make sense for him to fight very soon, so he can try to fight Islam, because Islam's probably not going to fight for 4, 5, 6 months. So, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, Ian Garry, I love it. I think this fight's going to be awesome. In my opinion, I probably think it's going to be the best fight of the No. I'm taking that back. I mean, it's not like I didn't prepare anything. I mean, Arman and Dan Hooker, that's kind of why I'm hesitant. I think this Dan Hooker-Arman fight is awesome. Respect to Arman taking the fight after he just beat Charles, but he hasn't fought, and he also didn't make weight when he was going to fight Islam for the belt. So that's on him. You definitely got to fight another fight after not making weight, because that just shows that you don't have, not that you don't have it to be a champion. It's you got to take it serious when you're fighting for a championship fight. You got to make weight, and so you got to show that champion heart in you to be able to make weight, and he didn't show that. So that's why he's fighting Dan Hooker. I absolutely love this fight, but the reason why I think that Belal and Ian Garry might be the best fight of the night is because I have a feeling that Arman is just going to wrestle Dan Hooker the whole time. I mean, you saw Arman just wrestled Charles the whole time, and Dan Hooker, he prefers not to be on the ground, and he can just stand and bang so well, and I think if he keeps it on the feet, he will beat Arman, but I don't think that's going to happen. So that's why I'm going to take Arman to win this fight. And Dan Hooker, he's on a good win streak right now. He beat Gamrot, and then he beat Jalen Turner, who's also coming back from retirement now, which is cool. And then he beat this guy named Puelas, but he lost to Allen back in 2022. But so I don't know, man. I think Dan Hooker, he hasn't beaten really high level guys on this 3-fight win streak. I mean, you can give a little excuse for Gamrot because he's in the top 10, but I mean he's just been losing people lately, and it's just, I don't know, but that is a good thing to look at. Dan Hooker beat Gamrot, and Gamrot's just a straight wrestler, and Dan Hooker held his own in that fight. So we'll see if that's why I said if Dan Hooker can keep this on the feet, he can beat Arman and maybe even knock him out. Because I don't think we've really seen Arman on the feet for that long in a fight before. I mean, he does have 9 wins by knockout. He's 22-3, but it's Dan Hooker. Come on now. It's just he can knock anyone out on the feet. But I'm going to take Arman here to win and just keep it at that. It's just, I just think if he does his thing, then Arman can win it. But who knows? It'll be super interesting to see. And I'll just keep it at that. I have a lot of respect for Dan Hooker, but I just think he's going to get taken down, and that'll be history for the fight, So, yeah, but that's all I got for you guys. Let me know what you think, and sorry that this is a short one, but I hope you enjoy those takes. I'm gonna get one of my buddies to be on for a little guest host next week. I think you guys will like him. He's a big character. His name's Joao. He's a great friend of mine. Been one of my best friends for a long time, for the past like 8 years. So excited to have him. It'll be funny to see how he brings the show alive on here next week. So yeah, but MMA pound for pound rankings, I'll pop them up right here as usual. We put Islam at number 1. He's a double champ. I know Ilya's a double champ, but the reason why Ilya jumped to number 1 is because Islam hasn't fought in so long, and Islam just cemented himself as the welterweight champ, double champ status, just like Ilya, and I think that Islam is better than Ilya in the first place, so that's why I have him at number 1. Pretty much, what else? Everything kind of stays the same a little bit. I think that I was going to have to put JDM at 9, and the reason why that is because, he didn't have a good title defense, and he just got dominated. And I think that, I put Tom Aspinall back above him at 8, but I don't think I can put DDP in front of JDM. I don't think I could put Max or Shavkat or Ankalaev or Evilov or not O'Malley, not those 11 through 15 guys. But I don't think I could put DDP in front of JDM just because, DDP's not a champion. I know JDM's not a champion anymore, but, he fought Islam for his first title fight. That's like the hardest person you can defend your belt for your first title fight. And I think JDM's going to come back very strong. I think he's going to learn a lot from that fight, and it'll be that simple for him. But yeah, that's all I got. Thank you guys if you made it through this whole video. And sorry about the little minor setback. Carter was great to have on the show. And Carter, if you're watching, thank you for all the time you put in with me and helped me bring this platform back to life. You inspired me to bring this platform back, and I'm happy I did. It gave me, I found even more love for the UFC again and doing this podcast. So if you're watching, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. But boys, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that damn bell. Hit the comment section. I love to see your guys' feed. Follow our TikTok page if you haven't yet. Subscribe. There's like 90% of my viewers haven't subscribed yet, and that's totally okay. But please do if you can. I would love to see that go up. I'm trying to get to 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Let's call it end of the year, and I think we can do it. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. Episode 11. I hope you guys liked it. Let me know what you guys think about UFC Fight Night. But other than that, I got nothing else for you fellas. Peace.